Greetings, my name is Christopher Paisley. I'm a Philadelphia public school teacher. Today I'd like to talk about Bettina L. Love's mission to abolish whiteness in your child's school. Bettina L. Love, an anti-racist professor at the University of Georgia, is an Ibram X. Kendi figure who is also reaching thousands of American children and paid by taxpayer dollars. In addition to preaching critical race theory in public schools across the nation, including, as reported by the Federalist, at an Indiana conference for teachers backed by taxpayer dollars, the Biden administration quietly supported Love's work before that became too hot to handle. So I did a video a couple of weeks ago which reported the fact that the United States Department of Education had a handbook for safely reopening schools during COVID this coming school year, and under the section that was labeled Social Emotional Learning, they had a link to the Abolitionist Teaching Network, which was founded by Bettina L. Love, so it directly linked to her organization and to her. And when this was discovered and it popped up on the radar, the United States Department of Education, the Biden administration, said, oops, it was a mistake. They didn't support it. They didn't stand behind it. They just simply said it was an error, and then they took the link down. So it's up for debate whether or not it was truly an error by the Biden administration, by the United States Department of Education or not, whether it was meant to be there or not. I feel, and many people feel, that it was meant to be there, critical race theory under the radar where it needs to be, because once it gets exposed, then people cannot really defend it because it's a political liability. So this was basically, the U.S. Department of Education basically said, we don't want to be associated with the Abolitionist Teaching Network and Bettina L. Love. So they distanced themselves from her. But if you go onto the Abolitionist Teaching Network's website, which I did a video again a couple of weeks ago looking at this, some of their goals are to, quote, disrupt whiteness and other forms of oppression, and to provide, quote, anti-racist therapy for white educators and support staff. So their goals are to eliminate whiteness, and another one of their goals is to give therapy, what they call anti-racist therapy, to white educators, not to all teachers, just to white teachers. So white teachers need therapy, and they're going to provide this to white teachers for free. So that's what you'll find on the Abolitionist Teaching Network if you were to go on there. Now, Bettina L. Love has a book. She's got several books, but her latest book, which was published in 2019, is titled We Want to Do More Than Survive. And she has a section in the book titled White Wellness, and I'd like to read from that book right now so parents and community members can see what exactly she is teaching and what exactly people are learning. Pre-service teachers, student teachers who are taking these education courses and are getting her book and are getting references from networks like her. These are the things that these teachers are learning. Also, this stuff is getting down into K-12 classrooms, which I'm going to show you in a few minutes. There's examples of her work going into K-12 classrooms. And by the way, she got paid by the San Diego School District Public Schools. She was paid $11,000. So we're going to look at that in a second. But here is a section of her book called White Wellness, and I just want to read this. Whiteness cannot enter spaces focused on abolitionist teaching. Whiteness is addicted to centering itself, addicted to attention, and making everyone feel guilty for working towards its elimination. Whiteness will never allow true solidarity to take place. Those who cling to their whiteness cannot participate in abolitionist teaching because they are a distraction, are unproductive, and will undermine freedom at every step, sometimes in the name of social justice. Being an abolitionist means you are ready to lose something. You are ready to let go of your privilege. You are ready to be in solidarity with dark people by recognizing your whiteness in dark spaces, recognizing how it can take up space if unchecked, using your whiteness in white spaces to advocate for and with dark people. And you understand that your white privilege allows you to take risks that dark people cannot take in the fight for educational justice. Wendy Cole says it best: the times require us to have the courage to be dangerous, at the same time recognizing that there are differential dangers. Not all teachers are at equal risk. Much depends on how you are positioned, on your identities, on your particular situation. Abolitionist teaching means putting something on the line in the name of justice, wanting dark folks to thrive and giving up power and positions in order for dark folks to do so. So notice immediately what you see right away is the Marxist approach where everything is divided. It's not about coming together, it's about dividing white folks, dark folks, oppressors, oppressed, and it's zero sum. You could look at the specific lines. You need to take away from one group. You need to take something away from someone, white folks, for someone else, dark folks, to have something. So it's not a synergy. It's not a working together. It's a taking away, an elimination, a deconstruction of what she calls whiteness from white folks, and then using that to give to dark folks. So it's a totally different approach. It's not an approach based in synergy. So let me just read this next part, and then we'll move on. The work of recognizing and checking white emotionality is done before you enter dark spaces. White folks have to get well on their own terms before they engage with abolitionist teaching. So white folks are not well. Again, white people aren't well. They need therapy. They need to be corrected, etc. More than just attending anti-racist workshops and culturally relevant pedagogy professional developments, they need to come to terms with what whiteness is, how violence is needed to maintain it, and how their success in life are byproducts of whiteness. White folks cannot lose their whiteness. It is not possible. But they can daily try to deal with and reject the whiteness that is obsessed with oppressing others, centering itself in maintaining white supremacy through white rage. Being well and white is rejecting whiteness for the good of humanity. The same goes for patriarchy, homophobia, sexism, transphobia, Islamophobia, classism, ableism, and xenophobia. So you can see that she markets in these identity politics. Everything is divisive. White versus black, able-bodied versus disabled, Christian versus Muslim, gay versus straight, man versus woman. You're dividing up all the identity groups. You're splitting them into camps. You're angering them. You're pitting them against each other. She literally uses anger. Abolitionist. It's a way to use this very irresponsible hyperbole and analogy to get people angry, not to make people understand each other, but to get people angry and to pit one person against another, and to use that anger for politics and power and to forward what she wants. Now, what does she want? It's not about learning from somebody. What is whiteness? Can we learn to understand each other? Can we learn to see how others are different and maybe come to a common place? It's not about understanding. It's about elimination. She wants to eliminate whiteness. She wants to eliminate the other. It's a complete rejection. It's a rejection of whiteness. It's a rejection of culture and values. It's a rejection of America. And it's not to try and come to a place to help us understand each other and to learn and to come to this place. It's a rejection of things, an elimination of things, an abolition of things. All right, so that's a part of her book. All right, so that's her book called We Want to Do More. Now, Stanley Kurtz, who is a senior fellow at the Ethics and Public Policy Center, he wrote a book review of her book in the National Review, and I want to read a few passages and see what he has to say, because he has some good insights about Bettina L. Love's book. We want to do more than survive, the title of Love's book, alludes to a saying of Maya Angelou. My mission in life is not merely to survive, but to thrive. Who can argue with that? A more accurate title, say, We Need a Socialist Revolution, would have been a tad more contentious. Yet somehow the book manages to move from thriving to revolutionary socialism. The connection comes from Love's life story. So you can see she's about revolution, abolition, revolution. It's not this, again, coming together, understanding. It's a rejection of Dr. King's message, as we're going to see. And it's not about repairing. It's about, abolishing. It's about revolution. It's about tearing it down and starting over. Okay, so here to continue with Kurtz. Although her family was not religious, Love spent her early years in Catholic school. The nuns believed they were helping their students, but their rhetoric of colorblind liberalism left Love feeling cold and lost. Today, Love views the nuns' colorblindness as actively anti-black. So she believes that colorblindness is anti-black. She wants to abolish among abolishing whiteness in America. She wants to abolish Dr. Martin Luther King's dream of judging a person by the content of character and not the color of their skin. So she wants to abolish colorblindness. She rejects it. Everything changed when Love joined an after-school program run by a leftist college student. Dissatisfied by tame liberal stories of Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks, Love's activist teacher tutored his charges in the radical thought of Angela Davis, Malcolm X, and the Black Panthers. Love and her fellow students were being groomed as radicals, and beyond a doubt, it worked. Till then, Love tells us, she had been operating in mere survival mode. Once she joined this small group of young black militants resisting the crushing power of a racist society, her life turned around. At long last, Love was thriving. Okay, to continue. Her book subtitle, Abolitionist Teaching and the Pursuit of Educational Freedom, supplies the name of Love's Abolitionist Teaching Network. So, what does Love hope to abolish? Plenty. The educational survival complex must go, as we've seen, but also the prison industrial complex and pretty much every other pillar of existing social order, including capitalism. Most especially for abolition is whiteness. At base, Bettina Love wants to abolish America itself and replace it with an entirely different system. So there's the Marxist flavor coming in. Getting rid of capitalism, getting rid of the foundation of America, Dr. Martin Luther King, integration, color blindness, whiteness, traditional American systems, the educational system as we know it. So this is her radical, abolitionist, very irresponsible hyperbole approach. And again, the United States Department of Education distanced themselves from her because they got caught promoting her abolitionist teaching network. So they actually had to distance themselves from her. However, Love is still engaged in many things in education today, including K-12. One thing is Love is a writer for Education Week. If you take a look at Love's articles for Education Week, you will see that one of her articles is titled White Teachers Need Anti-Racist Therapy. So there's a title, White Teachers Need Anti-Racist Therapy. Again, they're saying that white teachers need therapy. She talks about how schools are spirit murdering black and brown students. Another one is Grit is in our DNA, why teaching grit is inherently anti-black. So when you're talking about teaching work ethic and hard work, it's anti-black. So these are just some of the things that she writes about in Education Week. You can see very divisive, very polarizing, very Marxist, white versus black, oppressor versus oppressed. Nothing that's bringing us together, nothing that's holistic, nothing that's trying to understand the other person, accepting the other person, trying to understand them. Again, her approach is a total rejection of it, an elimination of it. All right. As I stated before, the San Diego Public Schools paid Bettina Love $11,000. So she was in K-12 schools in San Diego. That's what records show. And the Fairfax County Public Schools in Virginia had a link to her abolitionist teaching network until, of course, they got caught. When the U.S. Department of Education got caught with this link, and then they had to distance themselves from Love and her abolitionist teaching network, that's when the Fairfax County Public Schools also got on board and said, oops, it was a mistake. We don't really want to bring in this radical stuff. All right, so there's just a background on Bettina L. Love and the abolitionist teaching network. Now, why am I talking about this? I'm talking about this because, just like all of the other videos I do, my goal is not identity politics. My goal is not an identity-based approach. My goal is a principle and a universal values, a principle-based approach where we try and find these underlying things that can bring us all together, things that we can use to make us all successful, ways that we can come together and understand each other. I do support Dr. Martin Luther King's content of character approach, and I do still believe his dream is possible. We can acknowledge our identities and our differences because we're different. We can celebrate our differences, but then we must move past them to something that's more holistic and unifying. Love doesn't believe in this. She wants to eliminate whiteness, eliminate things in America. She doesn't want to try and find a common bond. She's written it off. She's completely rejected it. I don't agree with that. So I wanted to bring this to everyone's attention. So if you see the name Bettina L. Love, she's a professor at the University of Georgia. If you see her name or her work, be very aware of it. Make sure you pay close attention to it in your schools. Maybe you want to bring it to the attention of your school board or other teachers. If you hear of the Abolitionist Teaching Network or any of their resources, make sure you pay close attention to it. Bring it to the school board, make other parents aware of this stuff, and make sure that you are paying close attention to it, because it is anti-American. It is, as you can see, it wants to eliminate whiteness. She says it plain as day. She wants to eliminate whiteness. Therefore, I would say it's anti-white. So you want to bring that to the attention. It's dividing races. It's ginning up resentment. It's causing anger. It's using irresponsible hyperbole, like the imagery of slavery and abolition. All right, so I just wanted to make parents and concerned citizens aware of this. So on a final note, I would like to just remind everybody that my new booklet, it's called A Parent's Guide to Critical Race Theory, Fighting CRT in Your Child's School. Be aware of this book. It's real cheap. It's $5.99. I put this out independently through Amazon, not making any money on it because I priced this as low as I could. I just want people to, know what CRT is, how to find it in your school, ways that you can challenge it, and it also talks about this universal principle-based model that we can use to bring everybody together. So there's going to be a link in the description if you want to pick up a copy of this or spread the word about this. This is really taking hold in No Left Turn in Education, Moms for Liberty. There's other groups, people are picking this up. They're saying it's a really useful book to help parents and concerned citizens bring us together and to kind of push back against this divisive and polarizing method that Bettina L. Love and her Abolitionist Teaching Network are using.